I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around.
You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those cons, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are back again, Loaded Mag NUFC, for a very special show today. As you already know, the news that's out there is that we've got a new signing on his way, Daz, and we'll talk about it in just a second. But mate, how are you? How's things?
All good. Working away there today. All good. Yeah, looking forward to talking about Jacob Ramsey now. We talked a bit about him last night, but there was some doubts started to creep in a bit yesterday, but that was kind of blown out of the way this morning as things progressed during the day, and we're obviously being worked on in the background. But all good. It's still sunny here, very very sunny, but. Lots happening on Loaded today because we're back as well again for away days later on. So keep an eye out for that at 6:30. So, but how are you, Pete?
Yeah, good. Really good. Not as sunny here as what it was the other day. A few clouds around, but it's humid. So it's still warm. But very, very humid. But hey, I should be having the glasses on right now because we've got another signing through the door. We are there, ready to go. Oh, all right, okay, all right.
Without the car, especially to get. Oh, you have them as well. Yes,
I'll raise you that.
And I'm sure Chris Hall. I'm sure Chris Hall is probably his sunshades on too, and he is sitting in the car. He's been sitting in the car most of the day. If anyone who watched last night's show, you'll remember why. But shout out to Chris. Hopefully, it gets sorted soon, and you get your wheels back, literally.
But we're here to talk a new signing, mate. So we if anyone's watched the show last night, you know we'd have covered Jacob Ramsey. We were looking at this situation. There were little doubts that maybe Aston Villa could entice him into signing a new contract. That was the noise around Aston Villa fans and what they were thinking that could potentially happen. But no, that is not the case. John Townley did report this morning that a move wasn't yet complete, but it was edging closer. But of course, we then got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano, the confirmation that Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle, the agreement around 40 million. This one's up for discussion, by the way. We'll come back to that in a second. From Aston Villa, Ramsey agreed on personal terms and is travelling up to Newcastle as we speak. Really interesting there. Ramsey strongly wanted Newcastle and the deal now done. Not just Fabrizio Romano, but David Ornstein also reported on it. He seems to think that it's a 39 million fixed with a 5 million add-on to that. So already some differences in the fees there. As he also mentions, medical today into tomorrow, personal terms in the process of being finalized. We have our own Keith Downey reporting on this. Now, again, another different fee in there, 38 million for Jacob Ramsey. And again, going up to Newcastle for a medical. He then goes on to say in a little bit more detail, it's actually 39 million plus 4. So looking at around a 43 million pound deal all in, but an initial 39 million deal done. Craig Hope has also mentioned that the deal won't be done in time for tomorrow's 12 o'clock deadline for the squad to be announced for the game at Villa Park. I get your thoughts on that in just a second, Daz, but that was just a little addition there to that deal potentially being done. Was there one more here? Really interested, and one we'll come back to here with regards to Aston Villa and the sale of Jacob Ramsey. We'll come back to that. But Daz, signing number 4. We thought it was coming. Didn't realise it was going to come this quick. But what do you make of it? Jacob Ramsey on his way up to Newcastle.
They have really upped the pace as the last night's show was titled. I'm just seeing from Ben Jacobs as well that and it coming via Alex Crook that a 5-year deal for Jacob Ramsey. It does seem around the £39 million mark, and with I think it's difficult to achieve add-ons is what I saw wrote as well. So you're around that kind of ballpark figure. Delighted that he's with us. We know what he can do, especially when he burst onto the scene. He was really caught the eye then, as I said yesterday, and didn't have the greatest of seasons last season. He was kind of injured at times, and also taking the limelight from him was Morgan Rogers. It seemed like Villa didn't really want to do the deal either, because of that reason you brought up there, that they had to do the deal. They would have to sell someone, so this is what they've gone down, and they're getting pure profit from this. He's going to come in interim midfielder, can also play at the left. He's good at going past players as well. I think Eddie Howe wanted him for a long time, so that's a good sign as well. And I think Eddie Howe will take him to another level. That's the hope. Anyway, you can never tell. It's a bit of a gamble too, but let's see how it plays out. But looking forward to see what he can do in black and white. And he's on the away days poster as well as the opposition player. That was
Did you put it up? Because I do have it here.
Yeah, there it is.
Villa fans are thinking we're going to troll. We're trolling them now, and maybe we are. But the Jacob Ramsey picture, we'll now have to find an image of him wearing black and white. Maybe we'll use this one as the build-up poster. But Daz, you're absolutely right. You know, we talked about it last night, but really excited about this potential deal. He is a player that, if we get this right, could be a huge asset to Newcastle United. There's absolutely no doubt about it. His skill set and what he can offer this midfield is much needed and much wanted. We know with Joe Linton that we've got a very, very good player there, but we've seen the injuries start to creep in, and they're not short-term injuries. They tend to be weeks and weeks that these injuries are putting Joe Linton out for. We need a ready-made replacement. We thought we had it in Joe Willock. Willock's picking up just as many injuries.
Worse.
So this is, it is worse. And this is where we need someone to come in. Now, as we mentioned yesterday, Dad, there are a couple of question marks about him. One in particular is his injury record. Now, his injury record, it is a concern the last couple of years because he has missed games. This last season just gone was better than the season previous to that. So he has shown an improvement in his injury record. But if Eddie Howe, and in particular, James Bunce, can get hold of him and really manage those injuries, and we've got someone, or two people, Eddie Howe and Bunce, that are both excellent at doing that, I think we've got a proper player on his hands. It does help that he knows and is good friends with the likes of Anthony Gordon, so he'll know a few players in that squad. So him fitting in will be, in my opinion, quite seamless. Are you surprised that this deal's not going to be done in time for the game at Villa Park? Were you kind of expecting that? Obviously, his first game going back to his old club, he's an academy graduate, so he's going to have a lot of emotion to that. Are you surprised by it?
Not one bit. Look at Villa are right to delay it the day, so he's definitely not going to be even on the bench first. And you can understand that as well. They need to sort out the financial situation, but they also They couldn't do that to themselves. That'll be look. We wouldn't do something like that either ourselves. No, that's no surprise there. He might get displayed no, it's at Villa Park. He won't. We'll have to wait for next week for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But to have Jacob Ramsey be available and to make his debut at home against Liverpool which is already going to be an absolutely massive game. That's a huge plus for us in the build up to that one, and hopefully he's not the last one to come through the door in the build up to that Liverpool game. That's for sure. So, look, he's in the door, and it's going to be a big addition there. Just wanted to have a look at actually just a few of his stats, but I can't seem to find them at this moment in time. So we'll have another look at that and come back to it.
Can I ask you a question, Pete? While you're looking, because I'm just glancing at the comments. I haven't got a chance to go through them all yet, but there's some negativity towards the signing of Jacob Ramsey. People were expecting someone else or something more. Is it because he's not coming from Europe and there's an unknown and that we of him, and maybe it's that injury records that the people have the but what would you say to people that have any doubts on him?
I think that they're warranted to a point. I'm not going to say that they're not. I think there's an element of warrant there in terms of thinking, is this the right deal? Is it not? I have to be honest, as there is an element of risk there. In terms of this deal, there is an element of risk with getting Jacob Ramsey, and it's from what we talked about. His injury record is a concern because he has missed a number of games. Paulie G, he obviously thinks it's a good signing, but it's not just the injury record, Daz. And I'll get it up on the screen if I can find it. All the a second. So there we go. Because all the images are changed, so it was just playing up. Let's have a look at this. There we go. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes, I see that.
Yeah. So the injuries are a concern here. And look, matches played 29 last season. Matches played in the full season 46. So he has been involved in a lot of games. That's the improvement. So it's not really showing the level of concern. But where the other bit of concern is when you're paying 40 million or 39 million, whatever it is for a player, is these areas here. Okay, you're looking at his output in those games. So you're looking at matches played 29 in the Premier League. You got 1,600 minutes that he's played, which is a significant amount over the course of the season. But what you've got in return to that is 1 goal and 3 assists. So 4 goal contributions across the whole season. That's where the concern will be. Now, with a player with the level of skill set that Jacob Ramsey has, I personally would expect more from that. I would. You're looking at 4 goals, 5 assists. You're looking at 9 goal contributions in the course of a whole season. I would want more from that with a player that's playing 46 games in midfield, and he's playing in an attacking role, Daz. That Joe Linton role where Joe Linton likes to get into the box and he likes to be part of that creative element in that forward line. Jacob Ramsey plays the same role. So you would kind of expect a better output than that. So I think any concerns from my perspective, Daz, in the chat is warranted to a point. And I think that's maybe why the concerns are there. But I'm excited because I think that Eddie Howe can unlock that element out of him. But what do you say in response to that, Daz?
Yeah, look, like when you look at the clips even as well, you see that he can pack a punch with his shooting, and where J7 does get lucky the odd time, most of the time he's very unlucky in front of goal. Then things don't tend to drop his way. I don't know why he's so unlucky at times. So he does everything that's right, but then it just goes past the post or whatever. Pre-season being a case in point as well. But yeah, no, I too think that Eddie Howe and the coaching staff can get the best out of him, and obviously Eddie Howe has seen something in him from a long time, and once has been tracking him, and because we've been linked to Jacob Ramsey before a few times, he's never gone away, so now is the chance for Eddie, and we also have to give him a chance as well. Don't expect him to come in and it would all to work straight away. You have to give him a chance to develop and play the Eddie Howe way and get up to the Eddie Howe fitness. It's going to take a bit of time. Ideally, this was to happen at the start of summer, but a lot of things could have started at the start of summer, but that wasn't to be. So yeah, let's see what happens. So I think any doubters, give him a chance. That's all we're saying.
Any doubters, give him a chance, absolutely. And you can see here, like his overall attributes. The green is this season in comparison to general. He's always produced a kind of consistent level of performance over the course of the season. You can see the creative elements of his game are the bits that stand out. Technically, very, very good. He is someone that likes to get forward. There is an element of defense there, but not as strong tactically. They're the areas that Eddie Howe, I think, will probably need to work on and get the best out of to be an all-round player. But I am excited about this because this has the potential to be one of those signings that you get in the door and it could just completely hit the ground running and he can have a really, really positive start to the team. He's going to get plenty of games. We're fighting on 4 fronts. And you can see last season with Villa playing Champions League football, fighting on 4 fronts, he played 46 games overall. So he played a lot of minutes over the course of the season. I think he'll be exactly in that position again. One thing I'll say on that, Daz, as well, as I take that off, I always look to the reactions of the opposition, the fans, to Jacob Ramsey. And I'm looking in the comments. People do, you guys do the same. You'll be able to see it. Villa fans look absolutely and sound absolutely gutted that he's leaving. They don't want him to leave. They want him to stay. It's not about the money for them. They want him to be at Aston Villa and they're gutted to be losing him. That for me is a massive positive there. That tells me that we've got a player on our hands because regardless of the output, obviously his ability and what he does on the pitch clearly has an effect on the Aston Villa fans. So hopefully we're going to be seeing the best of that as well at Newcastle United. So it's looking like,
yeah.
Go on, Daz.
No, it'd be to hear what Billy has to say as well on Ramsey, because we did get the opinion of Rich on Top Table Talk, and Rich from Villa Park Pod, and who's on holidays at the moment. So if you're listening in, Rich, have a nice holiday. But and he's got an attitude. He's got a different attitude than most on Loaded with regards to players. He doesn't really mind anyone going once they get the cash in and they can reinvest it, but that might be the difficult point actually for Villa on that one.
It will be, and we're definitely going to get into this tonight when Billy joins us later on in the evening for away days. But Daz, you might as well touch on it now. This is a really, really sticky point for Aston Villa because they were talking about, as you mentioned, reinvesting at Jacob Ramsey money, but a reporter for Aston Villa and the Daily Mail has reported with his own sort of exclusive that they're not going to be able to reinvest any of the 40 million, 39 million, whatever it is that they get for Jacob Ramsey due to their commitments made to UEFA regarding the squad cost ratio. Remember, they did get a big fine with regards to that. And if anyone says the squad cost, we'll just take the fine, easy, no problems. Well, clearly not, because if they break the rules again, then they're not allowed into Europe. They can potentially be stopped from playing Europe if they make that same mistake again. So that where people didn't think there was that big deal and there was just a fine and we'll take the fine, we'll move on. It doesn't work like that. If they do it again, it could be huge ramifications for Aston Villa. They don't want to sell the main players, the Rodgers, the McGinns. They've had to sell Jacob Ramsey. As well as that, Daz, pure profit is the reason for that as well why Jacob Ramsey's gone and the others haven't. But what do we make of that for Aston Villa? Because everyone's been talking about Newcastle United this window. Nobody's been talking about Aston Villa. They've only made one signing, and now they're having to sell in order to reinvest. Should people be looking at Aston Villa a little bit more this season in terms of, are they going to be able to maintain those high levels that they have the last 2 or 3 years?
That's a good question. And look, if we compare to, and I know it's a totally different scenario, but remember where we bought Chris Wood from Burnley and we weakened them and assist them in getting relegated and keeping ourselves up. Now, it's not in any way, shape, or form the same thing here, but we are, in a sense, weakening a rival and strengthening. If we're looking for I'm saying he's the Willock replacement, really. So we're strengthening in that position, because I think a few people had it in the chat as well that Willock will get sold. It mightn't happen until January due to his injury, but I think he could be on his way out. Maybe into West Ham, as we touched on the other day. That might be suit all parties there. But they haven't brought in anyone. There's talk of them going for Asensio, isn't there? Though, would that be kind of a loan deal again or something?
Looking potentially permanent. PSG want him gone. They don't want him at the club anymore, Marco Asensio. And I think the deal around sort of 20-25 million, I think they're looking at. Obviously, he's on massive wages at PSG. So that might well be a stumbling block, because as we know with Aston Villa, I think they had a 93% turnover with regards to their wages. So they were I think they were the highest in the Premier League for wages. So they are a team that can't really pay out massive wages because they're already in a difficult position with that at the moment. So that deal might have a few stumbling blocks. It might not be as straightforward, but you're absolutely right. It is a kind of, it will be the replacement.
The other thing is, though, we shouldn't be laughing at Villa in that situation, because we could be in that situation ourselves. And remember, it's us against the big six, and Villa are our allies in that sense. So it's not it's a way to keep the likes of us down and Villa down and keep us in our place. And for dare I say it, for us to sell our best players onto the big six, or to those in Europe, just to tread water, let's say, and not being allowed to rapidly progress. It can only be a slow burn to get there. So just an interesting point. And we will talk a bit about that with Billy as well, I'm sure. Absolutely.
Just put in there in the chat, Genie Esther is in the house, one of our mods, and he said, smash the likes. We've got nearly 400 in the chat. Let's get those likes up, people. If you haven't clicked that like, just come off the live chat, click the like, and back onto the live chat really quickly if you've got your phone. If you're watching it on TV, just grab your phone, click it on YouTube, click the like. Only takes a second, but it means the world to us, and it makes a massive difference to us as a channel. Puts it out there to more people like-minded like you that want to talk Newcastle United and join into the discussion as well. So thank you all.
While you're there, Pete, while you're there, log into your account, your YouTube account, click subscribe. It's very easy. Because I'm sure if we looked at the stats, there's a lot of people that watch the shows that aren't yet subscribed. So must check that out. Bring up the graphic and name and shame.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh God, that could be an interesting one.
That's not possible. Don't worry.
That's fine. And whilst you're there as well, notification bell, because as we talked about, we're back later on with Billy, Aston Villa fan, to do the big match preview. Away days is back tonight, 6:30. We are on, so the notification bell will allow you to have a reminder of when that show is on. So you can come straight back in 6:30. Don't miss it, because we're going to be talking all things Newcastle United. We're going to get the Villa perspective of Jacob Ramsey, Villa perspective of their financial situations, looking at the match, picking that first 11 of the season. Daz, I'm looking at you.
Yes,
We're going to see what our 11 is going to be, and what Villa may well be offering. So keep an eye out for that one as
Super chat received.
Oh,
What's that? Oh, I remember that.
for a while.
Oh, we haven't had that for a while. But I did see a super chat, and it's from this man again, Timar Guitar, and he made a promise that anytime he make a sign that he would get a super chat in. So cheers, Timar Guitar. He says Eddie will get him firing for sure. Add Wisa, and I'll be happy. We've made all signings needed. And more, I'm going to have to put some overtime. This is costing them all these signings. But Timar Guitar.
Love it. Top stuff. And absolutely. Eddie will get him firing. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, great stuff on that one. Something you brought to our attention, Daz, on Instagram, I believe there was a of course just on like X, there was a here we go on there, but there was someone of interest, wasn't there? Talk us through what that, or who that person of interest might well have been, Daz.
Yeah, so I did see it, and then I said, I have to check this out for myself to see is this legit, and it is. So it's Johan Wisa has been liked the here we go on Jacob Ramsey. So he's obviously looking ahead, looking forward to playing against him. Is it? No, playing with him, hopefully at Newcastle. So yeah, you imagine that Wisa would be the next one off the bus, because I know things are going on in the background there with Bournemouth and Brentford, and potentially then linking to us, the dominoes will hopefully fall in place, and Wisa then will get over the line for Newcastle. That's the plan. But listen to Paul on the Tyne, actually. There was still some doubts on that one maybe creeping in, but we definitely need a striker somewhere for the Callum Wilson replacement. Never mind anything else.
Look, we may well be able to sort of get by. I think that question will probably be better answered on Saturday night when the game's done. Whether we've been able to get by on that or not, we'll see by the result. But the reality is we cannot go into game week 2, game week 3 and beyond without a proper striker up there. Look, we said it even beforehand. We're willing to kind of ride that wave with Anthony Gordon, but we know he's not a striker. We know he's not a guy that can play through the middle. He can do a job here and there for a particular game or two, but you don't want him regularly starting. We need to start this season well, Daz. Villa away, Liverpool at home, Leeds away. They're 3 really tough games. And Leeds, yes, they're newly promoted. One of their first home games of the season, their fans are going to be buzzing, bang up for it. This is not a Leeds that's going to be kind of like settled and balanced into the season where you can turn up and maybe turn them over. There's going to be an added incentive there for Leeds. So 3 really tough games to start with. We need to make sure that we're starting well. So this cannot continue. It cannot go on and on and on and on. We have to, at some point, make a decision on that. And whilst we're talking about it, we might as well bring it up because there's a couple of things around Johan Wisa. One in conversation with Mark Douglas. Mark Douglas has said there is active interest, but from his perspective, nothing has changed this week in terms of a move to Newcastle United. We know the situation. There's a chain of reaction. Bournemouth are waiting to get their striker in. Adley is meant to be coming into Bournemouth. That will then unlock Tara going to Brentford. Brentford getting a Tara will then unlock Wisa to Newcastle United. So it is a waiting game. But Daz, the question is right now, how long do we wait? How long are you prepared to wait for Johan Wisa? Because he is, as we've said, the striker that we're going to go for. At what point, in your opinion, do we go, need to look somewhere else? Where does that stop?
Monday.
Monday?
It stops Monday because we need to have the process of making a move from someone else, because we're only at that stage. Then we've only 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks out from the closure, and we have the Liverpool, as I said, Liverpool, Leeds, Wolves, Champions League kicks off. So the Champions League draw will be the week after that. So we need to get moving. We need to get. This is the Callum Wilson replacement. It is not the anything else. So this needs to be done anyway. It always needs to be done. So we said it's the number one target. And if we were to move on, we move on. We'll look at someone that hopefully then wouldn't be tied up with AFCON. I may potentially even a little bit younger. But who knows how it will play out. As I was saying to you just at the start of the show, lots of things can chop and change between over the next 17 days or so now. At least we're getting the solid signings in. We've got 4, and we know we need at least one striker. But who knows what else will happen either way, I guess. And that or something might change the market. And again, another domino may knock something on one side, and then it trickles and starts a chain of events. So, but in one way, it's interesting, maybe too interesting in some sense from what we talked about in detail last night. But at least it's not boring, and we might actually be involved in a deadline day this year, which would be very interesting.
Absolutely, and as long as we're involved in the deadline day for the right reasons, that's the key for me. I don't want to be involved in it where, and I certainly don't want to be involved in it where there's an Isak conversation. I genuinely feel that situation needs to be rubber stamped one way or another before we get to that deadline day with Alexander Isak. That can't go up until the window because it's just ridiculous, and just continually ongoing. Lee Ryder also mentions it about Johan Wieser, that we're still trying to do the deal, the Johan Wieser deal plus another striker. Okay, so we're still looking potentially for 2. Not helped at all by uncertainty surrounding the Alexander Isak situation. So Lee Ryder seems to think that we're looking at more than one striker. Of course, if Alexander Isak does leave the club and Liverpool do decide to pay the money that we know that we want, then 2 strikers will go through the door. We will massively be busy at that point. But it's gonna tick on and on and on. I did like this one, so I'm just gonna put this up 1 second. Steve Harker tried to say Adley, and he got it all wrong. And he then just says clean up on R4. Just because of his comment. I did like that, so I just put that on the screen. That was pretty funny on the back of that. But with the Alexander Isak situation, I just wanted to bring this up because Luke Edwards he's been very, very vocal on this. He's doubled, tripled down on the Alexander Isak situation. I haven't read it properly, so I'm just putting it up on the screen now, and I'll be reading it brand new like everybody else. But it's in 2 parts. So he said, Alexander Isak's agent has failed him so badly. I don't condone Alexander Isak's behaviour in the slightest, but he was told the move to Liverpool would happen, even though they are unwilling to match valuation. And all he had to do was behave badly to force it through. He's now got a player who has alienated a fan base, tarnished his reputation within football forever, who is probably not going to get the move he was told was his to make. He signed a 6-year contract with no release clause. His agent negotiated that. Trying to force your way out with 3 years left on your deal was always going to be a very risky road to go down, but he did it anyway. He continues on to say, I can't see that bit at the top.
I can read it for you if you want.
Yeah, go on.
Isak might still end up at Liverpool, but the chances... Oh, read it all. Okay. But the chances are fading rapidly and have been for weeks now. How he repairs the damage remains to be seen, but he will play next season regardless. The sooner he realizes the terrible mistake he has made and apologizes, the better. Play well, score goals. He might get a huge move next summer if that's what he wants.
So, interesting points by Luke Edwards there. Particularly interestingly, it seems like to me, Daz, and I don't know what your opinion is on that, because we've both read that, I think, for the first time. just as it was on screen. I hadn't read it properly. I just saw it and grabbed it. It's really interesting what he says here, because it seems like that Luke Edwards is kind of giving the agent's game plan away of what the plan was this summer. Certainly in that first paragraph there, it was obviously very clear that he'd been told to behave this way to try and force that move through. And yeah, as he said, he has absolutely alienated a fan base, and his reputation is through the mud. I don't know if you've managed to listen to the overlap, the sticking to football with Ian Wright, Roy Keane,
Yes.
Jamie Carragher, Neville. Like, if you saw the Isak conversation there, what do you make of this whole situation? And in particular, if you've watched that clip, what do you make of that?
Well,
are you in agreement?
I had a comment on that because I just found it hilarious that Roy Keane was saying he has to play, he has to train, and I'm going, hang on, Saipan, 2002 was it, where he didn't. I remember walking out of my last exam in college and going, yes, now I can at least have the World Cup to look forward to. Great. And Roy Keane is going home, and the whole thing kicked off, and he ruined that World Cup for me. Again, like Isak, and he's ruining the start of the season for me. So yeah, I just found it. I like Roy Keane as a pundit. I think he's hilarious, and he's on loads of ads over here in Ireland now as well. He's cleaning up, but yeah, look, they're all aligned. They're all saying what we're saying as well. They just think it's ridiculous. Look at Isak. I think no matter what happens and where he goes next, or whatever happens in the future, he's got to get rid of that agent. At least it just kind of it makes him look better if he does, because he needs to go on a big PR assault and to make himself more marketable again, and actually get back to playing on the pitch, as we said yesterday. But look, that has to all play out, and the next 17 days we're going to be hearing more and more about it every day again.
Absolutely. My opinion on this situation is not really too much different to what my ranting was yesterday on Alexander Isak. Yeah. I think Newcastle United, and I'm really glad. I don't normally always agree with Gary Neville. I think he's a good pundit. He talks well. I don't always agree with what he says, but I did agree with his standpoint on Alexander Isak and the situation. I think the Saudi ownership need to hold their ground here. They need to dig in and say, if you're not going to give us 150 million, he stays at Newcastle United. I want to see him see that reaction. I'm kind of all for it now. I need him to know how much he has, I'll say in nice words, annoyed us this summer. And I'm being polite there in what I'm saying now. I need him to know what he's done to this fan base that absolutely loved him and lauded him and saw him as a legend of the club. He's certainly not seen like that now. He needs to realize that his behavior has had huge ramifications for him. I'm absolutely in agreement. I think Ian Wright talked about it as well. I think his reputation has been damaged off the back of this. No club, no player, no team will see him in the same light, because this will always, even beyond Newcastle United, this will always be hanging over his head. It's been handled really, really poorly. And yeah, I think it's going to be really, really interesting in terms of what happens there with Alexander Isak. I want to just rewind back to the Jacob Ramsey stuff. This is why we're here. Jacob Ramsey is on his way to Newcastle United. He's just about to touch down in Tyneside. He's going to be going through his medical today and apparently tomorrow morning. Where does that leave Joe Willock? And the reason why I'm asking you that, guys, is because Joe Willock is normally the left-hand-sided backup to Joe Linton. But that's where Jacob Ramsey specialises. That's where he plays his best football. So it almost seems like this is a Willock replacement. In your opinion, is there any way that Willock moves on? We know he's injured, but he's likely to be back and fit before the end of the window. So there's still an opportunity there. Do you think he's just going to be staying and become the sixth choice? Because it seems like Miley will be ahead of him in that position. Or do you think there's a chance he could move on before the end of the window? What would you do?
I think he's up the creek without a paddle at the moment, and he is. I don't think he's going to go before the end of the window. I don't think it would be it's a gamble going for Willock as it is. If you're a buying club and then buying him when he's already half injured, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't advise the club to do that either. So I think he's going to be with us until January, maybe gets himself fit. Then he'll have a bit part role to play because there's plenty of games. So he try and put himself in the shop window then for maybe a move in January. There'll be clubs that are dangerously close to the relegation zone that will take a punt on them. Or even a loan to buy option or something like that, or a loan with obligation, or loan and they buy him if they stay up, kind of thing, or something like that. Could come into play. So, but I can't see him going before the end of before September 1st.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the only reason I kind of asked that is because obviously we were talking yesterday around this man. Bilal El Khanous. Obviously, there was hope from all three of us, me, you, and Chris, and people in the chat that were hoping that we could get not only Jacob Ramsey but El Khanous into the team and sign both of them. But that would mean that one midfielder was to go. It doesn't look like we're going to be going for Bilal El Khanous now. His release clause is expired. It expired last night, so we would have to negotiate with Leicester City in order to get that deal done. I just didn't know whether there was a potential window there that we could take advantage of, because I agree. I think the Godfather just said it in the chat. I don't see Willock playing much minutes at all this season. I actually see Joe Willock, now that Ramsey's come in, he's going to be taking on the Sean Longstaff mantle as the sixth choice midfielder. And we know last season, even when our midfield was struggling, Sean Longstaff barely kicked the ball, particularly in that second half of the season. So I do think there could be a window there. If someone shows a bit of interest, if his injury recovers and he starts back on the training ground, and that can be seen and voiced, that there may be one or two teams that could maybe ask the question towards the end of the window in a late scramble, which could unlock a potential other player. Maybe it's just hope on my perspective. Maybe I'm hoping that, but I think that you're right. The reality could be that he stays and it could be revisited in January. But I would like that to happen. I would love us to really kind of strengthen that area and just add players that we're confident in throwing into the team and knowing that they're going to do a job. Because I do kind of get the feeling that Willock is not really seen as the guy right now at Newcastle United, and I don't think there's a level of trust there with him. But we'll have to wait and see on that, mate. It should be.
So is it strange that no one went for that release clause for El Khanous? That because Leeds were linked as well. So does everyone think they can get him at a cheaper price? Maybe including us. Let's say we were to sell Willock and we were to go late for El Khanous if he hadn't moved. Everyone must think that they can get him that bit cheaper.
Possibly. They signed Bilal El Khanous for 20 million, I think, from I can't remember where they signed him from, but Leicester signed him for 20. Is it 20 million? I think it was actually. So you know,
at least the same.
Exactly. That maybe a 25 million. I thought 29 million was a fair price. I don't think I'd see Leicester going any lower than 25 million. So people negotiating it down to get it to a cool 25 is not the worst thing in the world. But I would certainly take that. I'd certainly take that all day long. I think there's a couple of questions actually in the chat if we want to.
Yeah, let's go for them. We'll pretend we're not waiting for Grey Cup And his announcement because the chatters are onto it as well. But give the game away there. Shout out to Tino, who has become a member. Nice one, Tino. You could have been a member already, Tino, and you just renewing again. Adrian says Isak and Wisa is a pretty canny strike force. Hey, let's see if we get there. It would be interesting. We go at the top here. Tom asks, is the Ramsey deal a Sean Longstaff replacement? I think so.
Yeah, well, we just talked about that. This is where the conversation is. Is it a Willock replacement, even though Willock's still at the club? Is it a Longstaff replacement? I think there's a bit of a shuffle there. I think Ramsey seems to be a Willock replacement, and Willock's now replaced Longstaff. And that's kind of how I see it. But could be different. I think there might be a super chat based on the first question actually that's just popped up regarding Wisa.
Okay, and it comes from Big Tank. Cheers, Big Tank. And he says, "I'm sorry, can we stop? The Wisa is the Wilson replacement. I've heard it 20 million times by now. I'm getting tired of hearing it. It doesn't matter who is replacing. We need his goal scoring. True, we do need his goal scoring." But it's also that we have a gaping hole there in the shape of Callum Wilson that hasn't been that we haven't taken any action on, and we've known about it since the start of the window. So,
absolutely.
It's also to and sorry, Big Tank, but it's also to because if people. We don't want people to think, and journalists as well don't want to think that Wisa is coming in to replace Alexander Isak, and then people go crazy, and we get bantered by everyone left, right, and center as well. So that's why they separated into there's the Wilson replacement list, and if we needed to replace Isak, there was that list we're running through, where Sheshko was on it, for example. And then it came to the correct me if I'm telling you things you already know here. But then Craig Hope was saying that maybe we need to buy from that one list, that Callum Wilson replacement list, to have two strikers that want to play for Newcastle and are going to go scoring the goals that you're talking about. But that's kind of why it's become a thing. We say is the Wilson replacement, that old chestnut.
No, I get it. I understand the frustration in that, but it's the reality. It's because we're looking at a certain level of player to play in a certain quality, and Wisa, with his age, although his ability would put him maybe nearer to Isak in terms of his goals last season, he can come in and still do a job because we're looking at Isak or somebody else being the main guy, and he can come in and still contribute. Going back to the season we first got Champions League, that's what we're looking at, is that Wilson was coming off the bench, still scored 18 goals in that season. Isak still scored a hell of a lot of goals as well, coming in partly late with that too. So there's that element of it there. So I get what you're saying, Big Tank, but there's a reason why he has considered that. Craig Hope has dropped his article, and what's really, really interesting on that, people, I'll read it to you because it's there. The tagline says, Alexander Isak is on strike at Newcastle United. Craig Hope's basically revealed that he is on strike. He says Alexander Isak is on strike. There's no other way for those inside or outside Newcastle United to dress it up now. His words and actions mean he is unavailable for Saturday's lunchtime Premier League opener at Aston Villa. Remember, Eddie Howe did say there's no injury that's stopping Alexander Isak training or playing. It's clearly down to him, and Craig Hope is pointing that out now. He does not want to train with the squad, and by extension, that rules him out of all fixtures for the foreseeable future. While the club continues to pay his £140,000 a week wages, as of last weekend, he had not been disciplined by the way of a club fine. We understand that will change if he misses a competitive match. as he will this weekend. So what he's saying is that the club will be fining him if he's not available for selection for Premier League matches. So that's what's going to happen moving forward. But so long as the transfer window is open, Isak's stance will not change, or rather the instruction of his agent, Vlado Lermic, will not. Why? To cross the picket line, they fear would give Newcastle encouragement of a truce, and the club could declare their search for replacement strikers and will enable his move to Liverpool, a hunt which is ongoing. Don't show any signs of weakness, Alex, is the order from his camp. So his agent's telling him that at the moment. But in listening to that advice of those who want to transfer to happen, this is said to be Lermic's last big deal before winding down at 60. That's interesting. That is interesting. I'll read that again. This is said to be Lermic's last big deal before winding down at 60. So his agent is looking for the big payday before he retires. There you go. That's the kicker. That is why we're seeing Alexander Isak behave the way he is behaving, because his agent wants the big payday before he goes off into the sunset. What do you make of that, Daz?
That is stupid. From Alexander Isak's part, that is ridiculous. How close is he to this agent? What does the agent have on him that he allows making him go along with this ridiculous carry on? Wow. So it's all still all back on Alexander Isak. He doesn't have to do everything that the agent says. He's not owned by the agent. He pays the agent to get him the best deal on things. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like if Alexander Isak had got a new contract, a bumper contract, the agent would have got a fee out of that as well. He wouldn't get as big a fee as a transfer move, but he would get a payday there too.
Yeah, it's an absolute joke. That is an absolute joke. His agent is putting his client through the mud, literally damaging his reputation for the rest of his career, because clearly he's going to retire and Isak's going to have to get a new agent, but he won't care because he's got his money and he's off into the sunset. So he is not looking out for the best interests of his client. Why Isak hasn't seen that, I've got no idea. It says, and I'll keep reading on. If you guys are happy for me to read it on, I'll continue to finish off this part.
Craig, up to this.
I'm sure he won't. Maybe not. It throws more people to his article, so that's
extracts, Pete.
Extracts, of course. Isak has already shown a fragility that has disappointed those closest to him within St. James's Park. Disappointment would be the right word, not anger, not disgust. Indeed, there is some sympathy. As one senior club said, it did not have to be like this, which is what we've already said. We've said that continuously. It didn't have to be like this. There was a better way to be done. And I'll just put this up quickly. The Crocodile, love that name. Thank you for your £2. This is the question: what does his agent even have on him to be doing this? It's absolutely ridiculous. And Jeannie Esther, Isak's agent, is a criminal. Yeah. I need to see that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. We have to put that out there. But yeah, you're absolutely right with that. I'll keep going with that. Anyhow, is many things as a manager, but he is fundamentally a decent person. He, his staff, and the club hierarchy have known of Isak's feelings for over a year. So we are aware. At least in that they have known he was unhappy following the decision last summer by Paul Mitchell not to give him a new contract that was agreed initially by Amanda Staveley. I'm kind of just reading between the lines on this one. So it says Isak is given 3 brilliant years, 62 goals, 109 appearances, including for Newcastle United and their first trophy in 70 years. A lot of this is just stuff that we already know. It says that being the case, one door that will be left wide open, as one senior source put it, is the one that allows Isak to return to training and playing. That has always been scenario A. He has a change of heart, signs a new contract, even with a release clause, or a promise of a move next summer, and spends the season at Newcastle United. That is the plan A. Scenario B is the one where the club have been working for the past 2 months, sign players that would act as a replacement for Isak, and then negotiate a sale. Scenario C is the one that becomes more likely with each passing day. So Isak remains against his wishes, and the club gamble on him returning to the squad post September the 1st. Howe and his staff brought Isak back in the building after the upset of last summer, and he went on to score 27 goals, including the win in the Carabao Cup final. It could, in theory, be done again, and once a ball hits the back of the net, the ripple effects can quickly turn into a wave of forgiveness among supporters. Isak should also recognise the lengths the club have gone to in trying to sign his replacement. They did not tell him he was not going anywhere. So they haven't said he can't leave. What they have said is obviously they've got a value on his head. And in addition to that, we have to get the replacement in, which they've tried. Hugo Ekitike. Well, João Pedro initially, we can look at now. Hugo Ekitike, definitely. Benjamin Sesko, absolutely. They've looked at other alternatives. Samu's another one. Agahawa is another one they looked at. So we have tried to get that player through the door. So we can't argue that. However, scenario D, and one that was not on the table a few weeks ago, is that Newcastle sell Isak, having signed 2 strikers. They would need at least one and get through until January, and likely a combination of Wisa and Anthony Gordon as centre forward. For me, I don't want that. I don't know about you, Daz. I do not want Wisa and Gordon being the strike force to take us through to January. That position is too important, and it means too much for that to happen. Would you agree?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Gordon can't look. We have no choice against. Well, we could have put Asula, but we have no choice really, but to go with Gordon against Villa up top. But no, he's not a centre forward for me. And we need strikers to know how to put the ball in the back of the net.
Absolutely, 100%. We cannot go into a season with Wisa and Gordon. Cannot happen for me. As is an agreement. People in the chat, I'm sure you'll agree as well. Last part I'll read out, and then everyone else can go and find it themselves. For now, Isak continues to train alone, to the point where some teammates have not seen him since before the Far East tour. That's important. So the fact that nobody's interacted with him in or out of the club, training ground or not, I think that tells you everything you need to know. We talked about it the other day, guys. We had this conversation and said that I would not be surprised if the players are not happy with Alexander Isak, and the lack of interaction that Craig Cope has put in this piece, saying that there's a lot of players that haven't even spoken to him, tells you everything you need to know. Go on, Daz.
Then, like linking back to what, and I don't want to get into it again, but linking back to our big debate yesterday, like how does he come back and reintegrate after the transfer window closes? Like, okay, does he come back with just, this is a job, I'm going to go to training, I'm just going to play the games and just ignore everything else? But at Newcastle, and we kind of pride ourselves in this, it's that family atmosphere. It's that, like, the family days that Eddie Howe organized. If you watch his interviews and everyone's interviews, it's all about family and togetherness. He's just there on his own. You know, he's not, you know that this is all going on still in the background, even though if he was still with us for the season, and he's just isolated himself. I think so. How does that gel? And that'll translate to the pitch as well. So I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, I have no idea. One bit we didn't talk about, and Craig Hope touched on this. I don't know if I got rid of it. This bit here, Martin Hardy put the bit out about moving house. I think people already are aware of this now, but Craig Hope does say the house he rents from the former Newcastle United defender Kieran Clark went on the market last month. Neighbours say Isak was moving out anyway after 2 burglaries, but you can be sure he's not looking for another 12-month lease on Tyneside as it stands. So where he's staying, we've got no idea. It was only a 12-month lease. He was always planning on leaving. He wasn't leaving the house the other day to force a transfer. That was always going to happen, and that's what's been lost in communication, particularly with Liverpool fans, particularly with other fans that thinking he's forcing his way out. As Martin Hardy wrote, that's not actually the case. So that article doesn't actually make any sense. Says that leaves Newcastle with a striker who is currently no use to them, and you can interpret striker as you wish. Isak's exile is self-imposed. Howe has made it clear he wants him with the team now, and the longer he stays in the cold, the more the warmth of affection for him evaporates. So that you can read between the lines is that Eddie Howe's being nice right now, but he won't be nice for long. He's going to get to the point where he's going to start seeing the different side to him. So how long you're going to see that nice side of Eddie Howe, Alexander Isak, is up to you. That's the point that Craig Hope's saying there. Not that he ends on, not that Isak appears to care, which says everything you need to know about the man right now and what he's doing to his reputation. That's all I'm going to say. You guys can read the rest of that piece there, but I've taken the little snippets out of what Craig Hope has had to say in his 5 o'clock piece. We stayed on a little bit longer to talk about that because we knew it was breaking, but Daz, any other thoughts to that? What we've heard?
No, it's more the same, Pete. The saga continues. Another bit onto it, but yeah, the aging part of it and him retiring. This is last payday is the interesting one. But how do you let someone take it down the road so far? As we said before, if when he initially started making statements like this or coming out like this, if you come out and you shut it down, then we've moved past it, you know. And when the bid was rejected and stuff like that, but now it's going, it's keeps digging and digging, and it's very, very difficult and it's getting nasty now as well. Speaking of nasty, sorry, Craig, I'm going to link you here because those you weren't having it on Jacob Ramsey, but no, Craig is in with I'm only messing with the nasty bit there. Craig is in with the super chat. Thanks, Craig. He says, would it be fantasy to say Isak may have held us back last year? We know he wasn't giving 100% at times. We may be better without him. We need someone though.
So would it say Isak may have held back last year? Wow. We did have this conversation. I did say to you boys, it was mentioned previously. Those last 7 games where he went off with this mysterious groin injury, but kept playing and clearly wasn't playing to the same level, apart from Crystal Palace, really, is where he turned it on. Did he play? Well, he scored 1 against Crystal Palace, but missed loads of sitters. Scored 1 late on goal. You could argue that his performances weren't there. People have asked the question. So Craig Lee, it's not out of character to kind of put that to him, especially from what we're seeing now. His behaviour showing that this could have been possible. You say 2 months ago, you'd have gone, nah, not a chance. A month ago, you'd have gone, nah, that's not like him. He might be wanting to leave, but that's not like him. Now you're going, maybe.
And I'm going to apologize. I'm going to apologize to Craig because I shouldn't have made that. I was always meant to be a joke. But ignore that comment, Craig. I apologize. See, Isak, that's how easy it can be. Don't let it get out of hand. Shut it down. Move on. Go score a few goals. Get your move next year. Pete, we will bring it to a close. Because we're back. We're back in an hour's time nearly at 6:30 for away days. So come and join us then.
We will be. Yep, we stayed on a little bit longer because we had that little bit of breaking news with regards to Craig Hope. But make sure you hit that notification bell. 6:30, we'll be back with Billy to do the big match preview. Make sure you're there.
Play out with Isak. See you in the next one.
I get those goosebumps every I get those goosebumps every time I'm around her.